We must strive to accomplish complete enlightenment for the sake of liberating infinite, kind, mother sentient beings. It's for that reason we cultivate the altruistic motivation, or what we call bodhicitta motivation, and it's with that kind of motivation that all of us should participate in this teaching. I feel that all of us must reflect upon the reasons why we need dharma or spirituality in our personal life, and why we need to cultivate spirituality within our mind. If we do that, I think that will contribute to to enhance the effectiveness of our practice, and also that will contribute to the consistency of our practice, so that we will be able to consistently do our practice. One of the basic or fundamental reasons why everybody needs spirituality in their lives, in their meaning we include ourselves in that whole universe of sentient beings, it's just because all of us have these deeply shared aspirations or the wishes that nobody, even down to the smallest insects, want any kind of pain and suffering. We are all same in not wishing any kind of pain or suffering. And we are also same in that we wish for true happiness, lasting happiness. But that's all what we really want deep down inside us. But now if we analyze the situation in which we find ourselves in, is that what is true? If that's what we wish for, do we really have those wishes being fulfilled, if you will? Well, what we really experience is just the opposite. We wish for true and lasting happiness, but that seems to be very rare in our life. We find it really hard to find that. We really don't want any kind of difficulties, problems, suffering, but that's what we really are mostly getting, And so as we look at our own situation, what we want and where we are, if you will, then we will start to understand the significance of spirituality and why spirituality is needed in our life.
아니 다 샤워 가르치고 있어나 비바 간기준 간리기나 바빵야겠다 탑 정고 그래서 아니 겨와치준 간리기네 저 냠선랑네 저 도야다 랑줄 저 용야게 타피된 거 생고 그래서
So we recognize our deeply shared aspirations and wishes. We wish for happiness, we don't wish for suffering or pain. But what we really mostly run into are the problems and sufferings, and what we really find hard to find or enjoy is the true happiness. So that being the case, now we as spiritual practitioners or the seekers or aspirants or whatever we want to call ourselves in, those who are really interested in spirituality, so we need what kind of actions we should engage in, if you will. Okay, what should we be doing? What is our responsibility? We want to do something, action. Well, our action basically consists of two things. To put very simply, that we need to abandon any kind of negativity or negative action, however small it is, insignificant, it doesn't matter. We need to make efforts to stop creating any kind of negativity and get rid of negativities we have already done and accumulated. On the other hand, we need to make every effort to do that which is positive. However small and insignificant a positive action is or could be, it doesn't matter, but as we should be engaging in such actions.
다 되게 아니 텐데시야게 빵한테니 라나 수수시고요 마도 다 미진이를 해왔죠니 다 나랭기 방지 투구만도 아니야 지 손주에네 샴드럽 대신에 상지당 근데 최대게 되는데 샵교니 나랑 좀 그게困难조 딕시에 메르서 뜻상동자 말이죠.
So in other words, what I'm really talking about here is in the Tibetan we have those very concise and terms to say that what we as practitioners should be doing is panglang. What does it mean? Pang meaning abandonment, the practice of abandonment, the things we need to get rid of, the things we should not do. So that whole goes into the practice of abandonment, pang. And then the lang means to adopt, to cultivate, the things which we should be cultivating and we should, actualize. And so this is basically what each of us need to do. Okay, so our actions consist of abandoning negativities and doing positive things. And I emphasize on our personal responsibility to do that. We might go into this kind of a mindset, yeah, that is very important, but I can't do it, so I will maybe ask somebody to do that for me. Okay, I heard that refuge practice is really important and essential, but I can't do, so maybe I can ask someone to do that for me. And that someone could be, as you know, anybody, our guru or some other people. So, we might get into the mindset of, paying someone to do the practice for us, but that doesn't work, So we need to do it ourselves.
상지 경진대랑 가나요. 아니 알리 당고들이 침난 내자 타발라나 그랬어. 무스가나 그랬어. 침바 이나야 랑그 루트나 타베 공파들한 그 만나와지 루트베 이나 아니 수수이 락번 타바데 수수이 락번은 이거 남기리지. 루트그래 가나.
That's what exactly our historical teacher Shakyamuni Buddha said in a sutra, and Geshe quoted the lines from his memory, and he said, even if you stay at home but the Chim usually is translated as being a lay person. So you have a family, you are at home. Okay, you have not abandoned all that. So that's what it means, being at a home. Okay, and so if you're really truly interested, being at a home or leading a family life, if you will, if I put a bit of commentary there, that the enlightenment or the nirvana is in your own hand. Okay, and there are those individuals who can manage that. Being at a home, living the lay life, but you still could do the practice if you can handle it. The spirituality, cultivation of spirituality, you can achieve nirvana, enlightenment.
That means
and then I think Geshe slips into English. Well, he could speak English. Then I will be out of job. That's the problem. So he said. So Buddha said, even if you lead a family life or being at home, nirvana or enlightenment is in your hand. And then he continues to say that nirvana or enlightenment is dependent upon you, but not upon other people. Okay? If we as individuals want to achieve enlightenment or nirvana, that is in our hand, and that depends on what we do or what we decide to do. It's not something, we have to rely upon, other people.
Vidik Langdo Chesak Yiti Gurvas. Langdo Chesak Yeti and Nita, yes, New Year's, Yasha Shenil Temple, Tensa Kita, Marsinkel is a New Year's. He Nanieta, Maran Winnie to Gidik Lando Siete, Yet Single Tension Gurvas.
So we need to stop doing negativities or abandon negativities. We need to do positive actions, constructive actions. But then when it comes to doing that, right, so we can't practice in a state of abstract, some kind of a cyberspace. We can't do that. We have to practice in relation to something and somebody. That's what we call the reference, referential points. If you like some of those bombastic words, like whatever that means. But anyway, in relation to somebody, we got to do this practice, and so we can explain that on, on two different levels, if you will. Number one, we do our practice in relation to what we call objects of refuge, in whom we go for refuge in. But on another level, we do practice in relation to sentient beings, other beings. Of these two things, our practice is mostly done or should be done in relation to sentient beings. So sentient beings are very important. They are what we call our what is it called? Our reference, the reference for our practice.
That thing, but then, just as you were can do say, Chengju Kanan was. You think Deva Kinyapa take Yen Delishons. So Maranzola, and Deva Tan Divi Juta, Yape recollecting in Maranzos, Rantol to Shomate, and a rang yen, they were the Kiwi or some tiny, Delatin Shumares, Lucana. Because rang the cure Dubati, any city yen of Pembata, Delasan Tani, Dubaina, the in David in the Ranta, Devatani, Ran Jungures Kanando.
So sentient beings, are the reference for our own spiritual development and practice. So without them, in some sense, we cannot do our practice. And this is why, great Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, means great of the great Bodhisattvas, Shantideva states very clearly in his Guide to Bodhisattva's Way of Life, Bodhisattva Child Avatar, and again Geshe quoted the stanza from his memory. So basically what Shantideva says is that every kind of goodness, positive things that we find in the universe is basically because of cherishing others, other sentient beings. Okay, and every kind of a suffering or the things going wrong in the universe, in our life, in everybody's life, is because of cherishing oneself at the cost of others. Okay, due to self-cherishing attitude. So now this really explains a whole lot of things why sentient beings are so important for our own spiritual growth and development. When we really care for them, when we really want to help them think altruistically, and then engage in actions to bring about that altruism in action or to benefit beings, then that's what really brings happiness and goodness to us and in the universe.
I think good and those. Tangi, you did don't make any pass. Marazolo, you tell any dunge, Tashetan, Sheda Karina, Dunge Kasiki Shumba in. To the Chamalone, around the duration, rank Kinzer in Shumares. The Carresana, rank Ebron the Vikins, Wanki, and a rank any time and give it lay so Chayatan, a name Majiba Lambatan, the way Logra Yambatan, June, Ata June Tamatonga, those in it, and those who get rank Ebron Zini, may give you here, Mobo and do shoes, and that day, no meat, and that don't hit around your ways, those kind of.
So the goodness in the universe comes from cherishing other sentient beings, caring for others, doing things to benefit others. But the suffering and problems that we see in the universe are basically due to our own self-centeredness and self-cherishing attitude. When we are so locked into nothing but I, and this is it. I am whatever, and I want this and that, and just multiply it by a billion times everything I want. And then what happens is our actions become selfishly oriented actions. So I go to the extent of killing others if that means I'm going to be happy or I need to be protected. Or that I'm going to go and steal other things because that's what I want, or that I go and indulge in adultery and all other actions, sexual misconduct, because that's what means making I happy. And I'll go and cheat and divide friends into enemies and all this stuff, because that means just making I happy. And that's how a self-cherishing attitude, self-centeredness, is at the root of all the problems we experience in our life and in our universe. So it is like, metaphorically speaking, we are standing in front of these two doors, which are both closed right now, and we are given these two options. There's no third option. Said, okay, one door is labeled, the door to happiness, and the other doors say, door to, into problems, and we are given the choice to make our own decision as to which one door you want to open. Now, if you open the door of altruism, cherishing others, then that really door leads us to this, happiness and goodness. But if we open the door which says selfishness or egoism or whatever it is labeled, then we are going to go into more problems and suffering. So what that really basically means in a basic sense is that if we do not want suffering, pain, and all that, then we should see that our actions of body, speech, and mind, our physical actions, our verbal actions, and our mental actions, they do not harm anybody, any sentient being. When we say any sentient being, we literally mean it, okay? There's no exception to the rule, Down to the smallest insects, we should not harm any sentient being. If you do, what happens is those negative actions will bring the kind of result that we don't want, suffering and pains to ourselves.
그 통해야 거를 제부터 지들은 제부터 용 투야 말이지. 그건 제부터 다 랑 미기윌레 가리치 사비나 디 나미도 다가라티 유 다가란타 용주팅 땅에디어.
So when we engage in a negative karmic action, negativity, harming someone, while we are performing that karmic action, we may not experience its result, because, or we should not, in some sense, because cause and effect do not coexist together. Okay, so because the cause is cause precedes result, outcome. So when we are performing a negative action, we may not experience the result, but once that is done, a negative action surely brings a negative result. There's no doubt about it. Okay.
Tendega and Jebute, Dunga the Rang Jungu, but it did Saki Kalu Hingayana, the Jud Sagamaris. When me you and the young looking about Garcetam, Chongumara was. Didn't I use to go Rangle Migi Le Sabi Colored, Pan Jebu the Rangle, Yuzang and Jonju, Dunga the Rang Tongayana. Magi late Sagmaris. This thing as a tongue to Yam, the Maribio and Jimny, the Toy Yamar Lege, Deputy Jes usually mato, just a color, Deputy on Tomaris.
Let's say we are for some reason able to see for ourselves what kind of negative results our negative actions will bring, certainly bring to ourselves. Well, if we have that kind of awareness or that kind of a knowledge or that kind of a certitude in ourselves, okay, I know that this is going to happen, okay, then of course we are not going to indulge in those negativities. Because this is like, we have wonderful eyesight, standing on top of a cliff, we see if you jump over this, you're going to be stupid and die. And that's why people don't jump. People meaning normal people, Okay. So if you do that with open eyes and knowing that if you jump you're going to die and still do, you can't be more stupid than that. So in the same way, if we somehow know that by doing certain negative actions, they are sure to bring certain negative outcomes. We can see that, with our open eyes, then we are really not going to do that. But usually what happens is that our mind is obscured by delusions, particularly ignorance. Okay, we have karmic obscuration, we have ignorance, as an obscuration in the mind. So we really don't know much about how the karma works, operates. What is the mechanism through which karma works and how it really works? There's so many subtleties, and due to such lack of knowledge, due to ignorance, mental obscuration, that we end up doing a lot of negativities.
Gewa Dumni, and tell Gavin Jebita, Nami Yidon Peta, Yabo Yungres, and those soon you are and Gakanang you are at the inn at the Cosi, Jebute, Rang gave Dumni and Jebute, Rang Tontu Yamaras, Santa, Monton, someone look at Kajiga, and children done Jebut connected Yungu and some Petawasa, the Tawasa Yamaris, Yungres.
So even though, say, Shakyamuni Buddha has said very clearly that if you do good, you will have good. You do positive karmic actions, they will certainly bring positive results. They never bring negative. That's not in the law of nature. Okay, but we know that. But somehow we may or may know that intellectually. But because we couldn't see the things for ourselves, we don't see that if I do this positive action, I can see this positive outcome coming for sure. We don't see that. So sometimes what happens maybe in our own life is that then we started to doubt. We said, okay, that's what's being said, or somebody said it, but I really don't know, And then, we don't enthusiastically engage in the positive actions that we should be engaging in.
So that Dunkete, the Jutan, Jui Devasani, David Devan, Jimmy Gever Sani, and David Dunhinju at the Mihia, the Karik Shiguasana, and then Maripi, and Deguyores, Lander, the Jermijundua, Lander, Nina, Marik, took dips, Lang Pal, Torgoyata, Chul Langoyak, and the anything. Nengat Hamaway Karasana, Ranjuli, Maribati, Deguyores, Milkanando.
So now if we ask ourselves, that, why aren't we able to see things clearly for ourselves? We can talk about it. We know that positive actions lead to positive outcomes, negative actions lead to negative outcomes. Now that seems like a straightforward and simple. But the fact of the matter is, we don't have direct experiences in this matter to say that, yeah, that's what I know. I can see it for myself. And you don't have to tell me. I can see that. Well, the reason why we couldn't see it for ourselves in many ways in the present situation, it's not always going to be this, but it's because in our mind we have what is called ignorance, Sanskrit called avidya. Ignorance obscures our mind and we don't see realities as they are. We don't see how the karmic actions operate and bring all kinds of different results. Okay? And this is basically what Manjushri Lama Tsongkhapa or Rinpoche sitting over there. I mean, he said it very clearly, and as Geshe quoted the lines from his memory, that our mind is shrouded in ignorance, due to which we really don't understand about the ins and outs of the practices of abandonment and cultivation. So, at the deepest level, what really brings us all kinds of problems we don't want, and why, we don't see realities as they are, is because of our ignorance. So in order to uproot that, now we really have to investigate and find out what can help us to get rid of ignorance. What method is there, what antidote is there that can counteract our ignorance? Because we want to liberate ourselves from ignorance.
Ranjuke, Nyamat Kasi Maripad never Zoil Takarisana, Teapata, Sampata, Gombas and Tandusini, Tenzongos of Cherusumbut and Dosini, Remchini, Ranjuke Tapshan.
So, what can really help us to get rid of ignorance from within our mind is if we adopt what is called this threefold approach, which consists of study, what traditionally called listening to teaching, Pheba, Samba, contemplation, and Gomba, meditation. So if we integrate these three things, of course, first we have to study, listen to teaching, otherwise what do we know, really? But once we learn about it, we got to contemplate deeply the meaning of what we have learned. But once that is kind of defined clearly, now we got to meditate on what we really have ascertained. So through these processes, these are the part of our cultivation practices, that we develop different levels of wisdom. That's why we call it the wisdom that arises from listening to teaching, at one level. Above that, the wisdom that arises from contemplation, deep thinking. Above that, the wisdom that arises through meditation. So as we cultivate these three different levels of wisdom, that means we are really, spiritually maturing and growing, then we are able to counteract. We are going to, fight with ignorance and get rid of it.
다 당보되는 동시에 퇴바돼 다 아니 노란 손도 퇴바 때문에 세 드미니스 군보라 소메지 너 쇼스 퇴바랑 퇴바시야 다 퇴바시야 when 포즈시야 아니 최 년바다 아 랑도 최 년바다 다가는 아니 랑도 때문에 때문에 라바 최 동시에 때 라바 있네야 다 퇴베 된 조고야 제가 퇴바지야 돼 So much has been, talked about the benefits of study or listening to teaching, Teba. How important it is and what kind of a role it plays in our spiritual development. And in sutras, Buddha himself said, and Geshe is quoting some of the lines, he said, listening to teaching, metaphorically speaking, is like switching on the light that dispels the darkness of ignorance. Right? If ignorance is there, then we don't see realities as they are. So we want to dispel from our mind this darkness of ignorance. The only way to do that is shine the light of wisdom, because that's the only way, not the torch or anything like that. And so when we say Teba, Tibetan, meaning to listen to,
which is a traditional term, but in a modern sense it means education. We need to educate ourselves about Dharma practice, right? It's through education, meaning we go and attend the teachings, we read Dharma books, maybe we do research, and all of these things are part of what is called listening to teaching. And through that, we are able to, counteract ignorance.
다 퇴배 표현 된다더니 아니 산지 마시면 손에 단다 안 단다 다 교회에 퇴바도 개침을 비마 또 단다 표현에 제기제바 여러 단다 교회야 말이야.
So I'm just in some kind of highlighting the importance of listening to teaching. Of course, there are so many benefits of it, and I'm not here today particularly to talk about the benefits of listening to teaching.
다 퇴바도 마주나 퇴바 제가 된다 쪼들네. 최근 아니 된다 해치더라스. 퇴배 되는 해버린 줬어. 아니 퇴바시에니 아니 최근 된다 해그랬어. 짠동 좀 거랬어. 퇴바 될라 때니 아니 삼배 해르드 시험 거랬어.
So the real purpose of listening to teaching or getting Dharma education is to be able to understand the concepts or the meanings of the teachings. And that's how listening to teaching is, it is directly related to contemplation. Okay, as we listen, then we have something to contemplate. If we don't listen, then we have nothing to think about. In other words, without education, without listening to teaching, then the other two things cannot function, contemplation and meditation. It is said elsewhere that somebody who is trying to contemplate and meditate without having listened to teaching is just like a handicapped person, meaning who has no arms and no legs, but trying to become a rock climber. Okay, now don't think about any modern gadget, somebody can fly about it, but we say in a normal situation you don't have a technology help that should be there, right? But you don't have arms and anything to climb over, but still you want to be a rock climber. Now that's a tough time, figure this one out. So just like that, trying to do contemplation and meditation without having Dharma education, listen to teaching, is similar to that.
then 퇴바 때 퇴바 퇴장도 마셔버시니 인출력전을 버려다 퇴바 퇴장도 마셔버시니 등다디랑 협이 등다디랑 편도에 버치다 등다디 예순 장고 버렸어 라린 최라린을 가지고 버렸어.
So the purpose of listening to teaching is not so much to gain Dharma knowledge, but there's a more deeper purpose and higher purpose, which is we want to be able to put put the things into practice. Okay, as you heard Geshe use the term, right? We could go through Dharma education, listen to teaching, but we become very intellectual thing. We're just kind of highly intellectual person, but we really don't care to put into practice what we, so then that doesn't benefit much, But that's not the purpose of listening to teaching, and that should not be. Okay, we need to learn, sure, but our learning is for a higher purpose, to bring about inner transformation within ourselves, to change ourselves for better, and that has to come through practice, not just the intellectual, knowledge.
다 망부지 소소 에네 배수불을 냐르네 수치 냐리나 펜도용 문다고서 그 내일 자야가 제도 메데 여바산지 마제 셰바산지 마제 아니 사고도 봤대 세님 내 자고도 봤대 나기래서.
So one of the examples given to illustrate this point is like, let's say we are not feeling well, so we go and get medicine. We have also educated about the medicine, which is the better one and all that stuff. Now we know so much about the medication. So we got all kinds of medicine next to us, but we never take them, right? But if we can talk about these things, we are really smart people, what kind of things have been used to concoct or manufacture this medicine, or what the brand name is, and the price tag, and all the stuff. But if we never take the medication, we're never going to get well. Or the medicine is not going to help us, right? So like that, we can accumulate intellectual knowledge through education and listening to teaching, but never practice it. So this is like buying the medicine and not taking it. It's not going to work really.
Somjata, Chue Lalin Karsitania, Kali Kabusam Tong Maris, when Tanging Hama Cuban Nagika, Singular, Sosu in the Sam Hindu, never Masheba ship. And it Tahani Pember do only Pember do. Pember most do Matuna, Pember Drake, Son of Tani, 2 Jundini. And then again, I never Kujipsia, the Tsukushia, at the day that Taba in Karasigore. Shamba the Hindi get up, Kajamambo, you just they can't have some mind. Singular movie, Shamba, the singular movie, Hindi, Goya. That the next shabby in that actually Lani Casset, the Legitamato ye, naturally only Casset, Mixi, the Shay of Kayamars.
So, as much as I emphasize the need to put the theory and practice together, we need to cultivate spirituality in our mind, not just get caught up in intellectual pursuit of knowledge. But I do not want also to kind of sound like or practice as something like in a high-sounding, high-floating, complex system, mystic, and all of that. Then somebody think, oh my gosh, I can't do it, whatever that is. But practice can be very simple and very practical. The kind of things I was talking earlier to you, what we can do and should do in our everyday life. Okay, just have good, positive attitudes and set of mind for others. We care about others. We talk a lot about love and compassion and all of those. So try to bring a little bit of those in our life. And try to help others if you could. But if you can't help others, okay, we couldn't help, so what can we do? But at least do not harm others or become an obstacle on the way, So when we do those things, we are practicing Dharma, you see, and that's very important. So as I often do that, before I go back to the text and continue my explanation, I take a bit of time to explain some of the things which I thought are really important and maybe reminder for many and new information for others. And so I hope the things I've talked about today are useful to all of us.
Tati Kasani Tari, use the Kadampa Geshe Ani Adusinikai Kadam Komananki, Ani Dorjee Pada Adishata, Ani Kadampa and Dagahi Solea Kandishi Yotin, Kalina Yotin, Lusmak Jitun Humans.
So this text we have been studying together for some time is called a miscellaneous collection of Kadampa Geshe's advices. And this is a wonderful text in that, for example, many great Kadampa Geshes of the masters would ask great Atisha, this Indian master, for advices and things like that. Then Atisha would answer different questions. And so this is what we are doing now. So we are kind of witnessing, if you will, the conversations, taking place between great Atisha and some of the great Kadampa Geshes.
That train those cousin the Cubans in Italy, Rampung, Yimpung Majes, and the Randa Yimpung like a Majes can do us.
No.
And the Randa Yimpung like a Carasana, and a Yen Lateni, and the Rank McGee Sabina, that the any Rampung Yimpushia Chang.
I think we already talked about this, just to remind ourselves that we must not engage in negative actions, karmic actions, because these actions, they they bring problems to both ourselves and others. So the Tibetan term we use is punga, means to defeat. If we do negativities, that brings defeat to ourselves because we have to anyway experience the outcome of negativities. But then we also, bring problems into other people's life or other beings' life. So this is like we are putting everybody in, not a win-win situation, but it's the loss-loss situation here,
That Tangi Namakin, the Hutsaris, things say. Now, round two Yimpushi, ye yell think of the was. Ye yell things, ye single tempatan, ye yashably tempatic the indoors, Migi Kasi, Migi Sags and Sasa till time, ye eat and cubing, but then was. So
going back to where I was telling you how, when we create positive actions or negative actions, in this case we are talking about negative actions, we can't talk about creating negativities in an abstract world, universe, because we create negativities in relation to somebody or something. And it is in that regard that we could either create negativities in relation to holy beings, objects of refuge, or we could be creating negativities in relation to sentient beings. Okay? And that's why we need to understand how they come into the picture. The holy beings and the sentient beings are important, in our life, see.
Shayul, when a shayul Maripa Shebata, shayul Magube Shebata, shayul Anipagater, Aneta, means that's society, the land of sight, that's Shayuki, Shayuk, that's Puya, Zen of the society, Kushavina. That any Rampungur Matu, Yen Pungsete, Yen the less Sayuti, Puyamarvas.
Let's say in the case of holy beings or the sublime beings or the objects of refuge, we could do a number of negative karmic actions. And let's say we are being very disrespectful to the holy beings, and that is a negativity. Or that maybe a lot of offerings being made to them, but somehow we just, snatch few from that and enjoy it. That is a negativity. There's a stealing going on. But in this case, the negativities we create and accumulate are really bad for ourselves, because these things really do not harm them. So in that sense, we cannot talk about how our negativities put holy beings into some kind of a loss situation. I mean, this really don't affect them much, but we bring more troubles, if you will, or more problems to ourselves.
Pena de chatang, ane ngajetang, ta maribi wangda yunguyare. Just a pena so yin so a jabata, tangana yin zekuata. Not in this shabina. Rang Nugure, Rang Miguelis, and Namni David Rang John Gore, Nugure, Yale and Nugure was. Ye Tella Tembe, any Yale Condus cigarette, then Yang and Miguel Lemon, Saya, the chain of the association of us.
So basically, the delusions in our mind are the motivating factors often when we engage in negativities. It could either be ignorance, a lot of the time it is, or it could be anger, it could be attachment, or other forms of delusion, but these are the three prime delusions we have. So we could be out of attachment kill someone, or out of hatred kill someone, or out of ignorance kill someone. Okay, so we could do the same thing with others. But this is what happens. So out of deluded motivations, if we kill someone, now this is really bad for both, right? We do the negativity, we have to pay for our bad karma, but now we have killed someone, we have harmed, literally, or even if we don't, let's say we couldn't kill someone, now this other person is really going to be mad with us, right? Now we have contributed to his or her experience of delusions. See that? So we become the ones who really instigated, who produce the delusions in them. And so now they will do negativities, out of anger. They might kill us back or whatever happens. So this is how there are so many ramifications of our negative karmic actions that basically there's no win-win situation. We create negativity, they create negativity, you all have to pay for the bad karma, and this is really bad.
No, that didn't. That they wouldn't do it. Cindy Shawa Nyam chance. Nyamba Shaju the Nyampa. Cindy Shaya Kandichi in answer, so say Nyam Tony, Towashi Rawash the cassette, Towas Dungi Shagu Maris Ganando. Called Nyamji Nyamki Yagras, that the train about our doing the canon is crazy. Train about our Dunkin, Dunkin, one shin, Sumbermato. That show Ranga in that Cindy Shagat Maduna Tayo Marva.
No. So then the next great Adisha tells that, of course, this is really, he's talking to or addressing, some of the greatest practitioners who have renounced this worldly life. Okay, so this is in that context. Otherwise this might not make much of sense to us, or even we may find it hard to understand or accept this. What he said is that if the worldly activities of this lifetime degenerate, so what? eventually they do, So don't be too much gung-ho and worried about that, because you are in spiritual practice dedication. So if the things which are supposed to anyway fall apart at the end, so why you are getting too much worried about this? Now this makes perfect sense for these completely renounced, dedicated people. But for everyday people like us, maybe a little hard. If we let all our worldly activities fall apart, maybe we'll have more problems in life, right? And but that's something we need. We need to understand.
아니 텔 아니 그래서 그렇다 괜찮으시네 아니 얘는 얘는 never see 다가 나이 그 라라 동해 망보 도시네 캐르네 시야다 초스케다 매버리 강 정바데 소시 강 거베지 딱 가서 쇼나 초기시엔 되고 마도 디톨 디톨 인트로 숨신 도시네 요약 선단의 대 동해 연구열에 따뜻 당지 매버리.
So in our case, of course, there are things we need to do which are considered as worldly things, but if we don't do this, we may not even exist. Okay? But as Dharma practitioners, we should also learn not to get too much attached to the things we do. Okay? Yes, there are things we need to do to survive, to function, to exist. But then we should also cultivate sense of contentment. Okay, be contented with what things. If we have one thing, don't then kind of get too much attached about it. Now we want 2 of those. Then we have 2, we want the 4 of those. Then there's 8 of those, and it just multiplies like crazy. That drives us nuts. Or if something bad thing happens we don't want, then we kind of like, we just go into all these berserk things about why this happened to me, and shouldn't it happen to somebody, and like just goes into all the psychosis and neurosis, and that makes it worse. But if something happened, if that's supposed to happen, okay, you experience the result, good or bad, but don't make it worse than what it already is, okay? Well, we have to do certain things, we have to pay the bills, whatever, but don't go into the mode of, endless activities that never finish it, because that's not what the Dharma practitioners do. Okay, so we learn, for us in our case, more practical thing is we need to do certain worldly things to survive, to exist, to be practical, pragmatic, but learn not to get attached too much to the things we do.
Cindy, when I and Cindy Rangashaya, Nyamba Shane, there's the delit and Delit Tado, any control machine, Shagores, Canary. That they pay the Carnesana, pay them those. Rang Dunani, Masang Pungo Chimbujuana, Soko Chimbujuana, that if a rangi shot me Yinga Sharoshina, the Yaga Girimado, Robashing it in the Tadoshe at the Kodosajamara, Sagamarabate, did not get race. Cindy Shagat to Samaro, any rangi, any Bango Iris, Dilla any Robashing in Duna, the Bayan Robashing in Dilla any Magashi Jamaris, yet don't get paid to see.
So continuing with the great Atisha is telling some of these great Kadampa Geshes that if the worldly activities of this lifetime fall apart, well, they will anyway fall apart eventually. So don't be too much worried about and concerned with that. And also, if someone in some way, contribute to the decline of your worldly activities, don't be mad with them. In some way we should appreciate that, because they are helping your practice, And the example given here is, let's say we need to say clean our environment or the house with all the garbage we have produced, And if somebody gives us a helping hand, say, okay, I'm kind of free this weekend, I'll help you do that. Well, we're not going to be mad with this person, right? This is being helpful because we want to clean and this person is helping us. So for these practitioners who are completely renounced and should not be attached to worldly activities, should not be worried about the falling apart of worldly activities, if somebody comes and contributes to that, and that might even help them to renounce even more, So don't be mad with these people, but rather appreciate it. And that's the message.
Cindy, number of Tangin, Rang Nimbo, you see the Pongo Bows. Then that did not get the human 9 years. Chendi, the number of the Nanto Mambuchi do Yungo, Chesa, rank Yen Shoyak and Namto, Jan Duyak and Nanto. Ane, Devi, no such a many with doing it, that they could COVID nail that Nanto Mambuchi was Yungers. Not the somebody Rangi, Niembo, you see a Pongo Boss. Tell it to any Kate child, that Niembo Cassitain to do in tiny. The man Niembo contain Tubate, that control independent Zervagom, condition Zervagom. Ane, the child and it up Lucine, Niembo Dubalas of a Tendigomata. Ane, Najagi Niebola, Neta Unjungos of a Tendigomata, and it Chawa Mataba Gomata, and so Gachi that those rest, Niembo, you say, so Tawny, Niembo contain to the Chevres Canando.
And then I just also goes to tell them that if they experience what we call namto, the Tibetan word namto has been rendered as conceptual thoughts, which in some ways doesn't convey that much. It's a very generic term. But what we're really talking about is all the worries and concerns and hopes and expectations of this lifetime. Okay, these are the things which bring us so much suffering. So if any such worries and hopes and expectations and desires pop up, whatever antidotes you can find, just counteract these worries and expectations, all these mindsets. And that's very important. And there are many specific antidotes or specific deluded states of mind, if you will. For example, if anger is one's predominant problem, then maybe it's the time to learn more about how to cultivate patience, because patience is a specific antidote to anger. If attachment is one's big issue or a problem, then one of the things suggested is one should meditate on the repulsiveness. Now that's a good word of things. How things have repulsive nature. And that will help to counteract one's attachment. If ego is one's problem, and then maybe do the breathing, meditation. Just breathe in, breathe out, and let go that's ego, let go that arrogance. And if that's not working, just reflect on the transitory nature of life and things, how everything is changing from moment to moment. Okay? And eventually, everything has to come to an end. Including our own lives. So think about the impermanence of life and things, and that will really tame the ego. If ego can handle that, that would be amazing. But so there are many specific antidotes to different delusions, and to do one's best to apply every and any antidote we can find to counteract our hopes and expectations and worries and concerns of this lifetime.
No, that Nanto Mamu Nanta, Dembranzi with Dinzi Nanto Tap the Futre, Dembranzi with Dinzi Namto. Dembranzi with Dinzi Terre, Annie, Dembranzi with Dinzi Nanto, Annie, Churkandichi in a Rangun Joya Marte, Rangun Driver, Zimbi, Dan Nanto, that the Namto Tap the Futres.
But of all the worries and concerns and expectations and desires and hopes and fears, and you just now add to the list. It'll go on. But the worst kind of what we call namto, the thought or preconception we have, is the conception of grasping at self. Okay, we usually call it self-grasping or grasping at true existence. Now that is the worst form of worry, concern, whatever, It is. What this really basically is every phenomenon does not exist, okay? NOT is big letter and underlined, okay? So that does not exist from its own side, objectively. Does not exist in and of itself. However, from our point of view, we perceive them to exist just exactly that way. That's where we have gone wrong. So because we look at things as if they exist in and of themselves, now we are very gung-ho about it. It's just like this tight and grasping happens. Okay, and this is the worst form of concepts we have from which all other delusions arise. So the root of all the conceptions or the worries and expectations and all of those things we have is this, conception of grasping at self.
kasongchata dangzi maripatita nanto thanking jungsa go chagres.
So grasping at self, or which in other words is the worst form of ignorance, ignorant conception of grasping at self. That's why I try not to do this. It's too mouthful, and I have to repeat this 10 times in a translation. That drives me little nuts here. But, that is the source of all our other delusions and all our other problems.
Sawarita, Kanyasata, Yumushana Maningi Sola Tali Shongas, Danzi Maribata, Teleshonate, Sunguris.
Yes. Great Indian Master Acharya Chandrakirti states in his middle supplement to the Middle Way, and Geshe quoted the lines from his memory, which says that all forms of delusions basically arise from, now we use a different term here, it's called the view of transitory collection. It's a technical term. What really in a nutshell it means is grasping at self. When we see the self to exist in and of itself, truly, inherently, then all problems kick in.
Sonsata, Tindik and Dig Danzi Maripatita, Nemo Yin Tanjik Zawa Chagyoris.
So that grasping is the root of all other delusions.
Sonsata, Sonta, Migi Lake and Lake Yinaya, Nyomobi, Jason T, then Jud Nyomobasin, Telepension.
So logically, in relation to that, we can say that any negativity we do is somehow related to delusion and somehow related to this grasping at self. Okay? Because they are causing us to do negativities.
So that Danzi Maripati, Zawa the Kevin, the map Zevin, and then Numubi Chamalota, Mab Chagris.
So if we can somehow uproot this grasping at self, we can just kind of take it out, then all other forms of delusion cannot reside in us, which means when we are free of delusion, then all the problems we are talking about, which delusions bring to us, they don't exist in us or with us, Now we are really free, liberated.
So that Japan song was, she will jump just when you more JT told us of the New York, the Yinayati, the Samalo, and Zawati said the any dancing Mariba songs, Ranji dancing Mariba the Jevina, that Ranjuli Yepe, Yomo Jay to Samalo, Zawadi, Jevres Kana. Then we jump just.
Great Indian Master Aryadeva, the main disciple of Arya Nagarjuna, states in his very profound work called 400 Stanzas on the Middle Way. It's called Chatuk in Sanskrit, Shikjava. And in that it said, again Geshe quoted a line from his memory, if you destroy ignorance, all those things will be destroyed. Now what are we really talking about here is that we have so many delusions in each of us. Okay, if you want the complete list, it is 84,000 forms of delusion. I mean, we are really rich, in delusions. Figure this one out. Nobody is poor here. Very rich. So now the question is, how can I get rid of all these 84,000 forms of delusion, which is driving me nuts and everybody nuts around me? Is if we uproot the ignorant grasping at self, then this all other, that is going to be bad, but all this 8,000 whatever other delusions will not be there, because they are all dependent upon grasping at self. So when we free ourselves from grasping at self, we free ourselves from all other forms of delusions, and so that is the secret here. Okay? Again, the emphasis is one's own grasping at self. We have to look within ourselves. We are not talking about, Mr. XYZ's grasping or Mrs. XYZ's grasping. My grasping at self is the root problem, and this is what I need to get rid of.
That they never saw it. The Hashim Helen Jan to you and Hart and in the Yamarish. To never saw it, and then take it on some.
So now how do we do that? How do we uproot that grasping at self from within us? Of course, it's wonderful to recite mantras, but that's not enough. It is wonderful to say some nice prayers. That's not enough. What really requires is a deep thinking and the use of reason and logic. We have to use analysis. We have to use reasoning in order to get through this grasping. In other words, what I'm trying to say here is we need to realize the profound view of emptiness or shunyata or sunyata in Pali. We need to realize the ultimate nature of phenomena called emptiness or voidness or some other beautiful words somebody has that I don't know yet. Okay, we need to realize that ultimate nature of phenomena in order to get rid of ignorance from within our mind. And in order to get to emptiness, we need to go through this whole, reasoning and analysis. It's through reasons, the use of the reasons, we need to understand what does emptiness mean. What do we mean that all phenomena are empty? What does that mean? So this is where the best reasoning we use is called the reason of dependent arising. I don't know how much sense is conveyed in English here. The pratit samutpat in Sanskrit, how everything exists relatively and in relation to something else. Okay, so that is the best reason we use to analyze phenomena and to get to emptiness. That's because the great Indian master Acharya Chandrakirti states in his supplement to the Middle Way or the Madhyamik Avatar, again Geshe quoted the lines from his memory, he said, if we use the reasoning of dependent arising or pratit samutpat, tenjung in Tibetan, or dependent origination, we can cut through this whole network of deluded conceptions. And I think I will stop there today, and once again I want to remind all of ourselves that in our everyday life, as we are enjoying life, leading our life, do our best to bring these teachings into everyday life, that do as much as we can to stop the negativities or to purify ourselves of the negativities and try to do the things which are positive and helpful.
And dawan de any second dawas to shin chabachi, Dajak Tambashet Tobago, and in Zabakuni Hinanta, and in Zabakahin and the show. Zabasum Dusini, and in Dawan Dinner, Kiyu, Sonsa, Chambutan, Chidakta, Kachambuchiris.
This month, according to Tibetan lunar calendar, is called Sakadawa, the 4th month according to Tibetan lunar calendar, which is considered as the holiest month for Buddhist practitioners. Why? Because in this particular month, 3 of the greatest deeds of Buddha's life, took place. And that's why. So actually it is on the 15th of this month, which would be full moon, day that Buddha was born on the full moon of this month. Buddha attained enlightenment or performed the deed of attaining enlightenment on the full moon again of this month, and then finally he performed the deed of passing away into parinirvana on the same day. Yes. So the Saga is a Tibetan name of a star for this particular month. Every month is associated with a star. Now, this is something astrologers would know. But so this month is called Sagadawa because of the star Saga. So this is the month where Buddha's 3 great enlightened deeds were performed.
아니 다 디나는 다wan 디나는데 배 가서 소소 겨와 드로빙이나 그게 기디 가르치면 단 주트니 기용고 소자 난주네 다 되고 빵 겨와 드고 여기나 라브르데 아텐디 다wan 디나는 소소 간데 계정하고 셔터비는 야고요.
So we believe that in this month, of course, in a general sense, if we do negativities, they will bring negative, results. If we do positive action, they bring positive results. But having said that, due to the significance or the auspiciousness of this month, all the good and bad things we do, they multiply by many times, and therefore our actions become extremely powerful actions, both good and bad. So if we do something negative this month, well, that is really bad. It's going to be very, very bad. But if we do something good, it's going to be really, really good because of the significance of the month. And so what we normally try to do is we try to dedicate more into practice, for months like this. And that would be, and I have some, I'm re-announcing the same stuff here. Let me see. Wednesday, June 7, Geshe in the evening will give Refuge Vows, and that means people who, decided from their side to take Buddhism as their path. So if they want to take the Refuge Vows, that's been given. And that will be followed by an introduction to what is called Nyungne practice, fasting retreat of Buddha of Compassion, Avalokiteshvara. Okay, so this would be especially good for new people. If you think, okay, I want to do the retreat this weekend, but what does it really mean? What am I supposed to do now? All that. And then Saturday, June 10, is the first day of the Nyungne retreat. Okay? And then the Sunday, there will be no teaching because it's the second day and nobody is going to talk or eat and do anything. So it's completely, whole day retreat. And so that is the June 11, which is the full moon day. So Buddha's enlightenment and Buddha's birth and Buddha's parinirvana day, which will be observed. And then Monday, June 12, in the morning, early morning, we'll have one more session, and that will conclude your fasting retreat practice, Nyungne, and you will be released of your vows and, all that. So that's the coming weekend. So no teaching for the general public, but those who participate in Nyungne, you are here. And then the following week, Sunday, which is June 18, there is no teaching because Geshe will be teaching in Colorado Springs. Okay, so we have next 2 weeks no teachings, but the next weekend is the Nyungne practice retreat, and the week after that, no teaching. Maybe you can get some rest, those who do Nyungne. Okay, then there's one more. Here, 2 of our very long time, students and of Geshe and who've been in long retreat for years and years, they need our help. Their names Jean and Francis, and they need if somebody has a place, for their car needs a home for 2 months. Okay, so if somebody has a place, for their car to be parked at there, so please talk to Annie. Okay, we would appreciate that.
Okay. 아니 나나 생기든 점네 최진이십이 계획이 자올라 때네 산지 때문에 뭐지 다지 이런 좀 내가 봐. 아니 자위 이노베 제베 딘지 리스 마체베 딘지 셰베 담바는 저 구세 셰베 때문에 두지기 돈도 몇몇은 중요한 거. 아니 최종경기 쇼 보면 넘시 춘디지 샤와는 있는 거 같다. 이든지 가면 되다 얘도 민티비고 좋다다 해니 튼지로 좋다다 몇몇은 중요한 거.
Let us dedicate our collective marriage for the flourishing of Dharma, the source of benefits and happiness throughout the universe. May His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all other great holy beings, wherever they are in any part of the universe, live long and be successful in fulfilling their visions benefiting sentient beings. May spiritual communities throughout the world and spiritual practitioners from all traditions remain healthy, harmonious, and be successful in fulfilling their spiritual aspirations. May this and other world environments be free of all kinds of unwanted pains and problems, and beings find peace, happiness, prosperity, and spirituality.
안도나 마게 생기 탐지 린지 주발에 존 산지지 공부하는 거 기타 비주지.
In essence, we dedicate our marriage for all kind mother sentient beings to be free from the fears and dangers of two types of mental obscuration, and may we all reach complete enlightened state quickly.
Air condition.
We turn on.
Yeah.
We need to.
Try to get it. Try to get it. Oh, yeah.
Okay.